Hello and welcome to today's YouTube video. Today I'm going to be showing you the basics of how to play positional chess, and there's three parts to it in my opinion. The main three parts to me are piece development slash piece placement, pawn structure, and king safety. So yeah, I'm going to go through all three of those, and the reason I'm on the black side right now is because I'm going to be showing you the pawn structure part from the Caro-Kann. The reason I'm showing you from the Caro-Kann is because Caro-Kann is very positional opening. It's a very solid opening, and it's the opening I've been advocating for beginners. So yeah. So one line in the Caro-Kann is the main line actually. So this is the main line right here, or at least I think it used to be. That was called the Chigorin. Yeah. But this is the main line of the Caro-Kann. You're supposed to take, and Tart's cower is called knight to f6, or knight f6 is actually the main line. And then after knight takes f6, then the Tart's cower is e takes f6. Now, the reason that this is a positionally good opening is because taking with the G pawn kind of ruins your king safety. I said this was part of king safety, and I said that this is part of pawn structure, but this also goes into the king safety part. Taking with the G pawn kind of stops you from castling king side here, and it makes the position a lot harder to play practically, because you're going to have to develop all your queen side pieces, and then you're going to have to castle queen side, and the king on c8 isn't even that safe in this position. So most likely you're actually just going to keep your king in the center in this opening, which isn't always the best thing to do. So yeah, the Tart's cower variation is taking with the e pawn, and positionally this is the best option since you're opening up your bishop. So that goes into piece development. It helps you develop your pieces faster, which can just be practically very easy, and it's just a very principled thing to do. It also adds to your king safety. For example, bishop d3, you go bishop d6, and after knight c3, castles, you have an extra pawn in front of your king, and pawns in front of your king generally mean your king is safer. So an extra pawn means it's extra safe, and that's actually proven by restricting white's pieces here. Because if you take a close look at things, the knight can't even move forward here, so it's going to have a really awkward time playing in the game here. The bishop has to come out to like one of these, it can't come out to any of these squares, so it's going to have to play on a more passive square on e3 or d2. And look at how active your pieces can be. Your bishop can develop to g4, your knight can come out to the center right here. It takes a little bit longer since the pawn is on c6, and you can't develop your knight to f6, but it's still a very active square on d5. Just watch out for the c4 after you play a knight to d7, because there is a fork opportunity here with c5 if you play knight to b6. So yeah, you can develop your pieces actively here. Your king is very safe. The pawn structure is a bit damaged, which doesn't seem like it's very good positionally, but it's a little bit counterintuitive here. This is part of an opening, so sometimes it can be like that, but positionally the pawn on f6 is actually very strong and helps your position more than it harms it. Another good example of pawn structure is in the Jawava London, my main opening, and it comes out of the main line, I would say. Yeah, this is the most played, and after knight to b5, the most common response, even though it isn't the best, is a bishop d6, and you take the knight, and black's pawn structure is ruined in the center. Although you may think this is good, since now black has an extra pawn in the center, it's actually very bad, since you essentially develop e3. Common move is a knight to c3, c6. You play knight f3, stopping the pawn push in the center. Castles, you play bishop e2 because you don't want to run into any fork opportunities later on with e5 and e4, which I've fallen into, so don't do that, please. So yeah, after rook e8, you're supposed to play h3, and this is a very positional reason. First of all, you want to keep the bishop pair, which is another positional concept. Bishop pair is generally better for the side that has both bishops. So white is already better here. Move here for black is usually e5 and play bishop back to h2 all the way back, and essentially your bishop is going to be doing a lot here. For example, after e4, you play knight to d2, and now your bishop is simply going to have a very long-term pressure on the d6 pawn. And guess what? Your king is going to also be very safe here because you have an extra piece around it, the dark squared bishop, although it is taking up the loop square, so you do have to watch out for that. Okay, let's go to the next concept, which is piece development. And I'm actually going to show this in a gambit, which is a bit principle breaking, but I just want to show you in terms of how good it is even down a pawn. So I'm going to show you in the Smith-Morra gambit, since I used to play that, and this is the Smith-Morra gambit right here. You sacrifice pawn and essentially get a lot of piece development here. Knight c6, bishop f4, e6, knight to f3, and you are developing very quickly. You can notice that by how many pieces the enemy has developed, and opponent has one piece developed, and guess what? You have 3, and even I would maybe even call the queen developed, since it has very open lines here. Your d-pawn is not restricting the queen anymore. Your bishop can come out very easily. For example, knight out, you already have queen e2. This is like the setup that you want to go for in the Smith-Morra. You want to usually develop your bishop to e3, rook d1, castles. It's a very, very normal setup. So d6 is a very normal setup. This is like the main formation that people play, the Scheveningen formation. Bishop e7. Oh, don't bomb cloud. That's not a good move. And bishop e7, you play bishop d3 and bring your rooks over to d1 and c1. So after castles, just look at how much better your pieces are. There's a lot of things to notice in this position. Of course, you're down a pawn, but let's just ignore that part for now. You have a pawn in the center. Your opponent has pawns in their part of the center, but they're not controlling any of your center, although their pawn structure is very solid. You are controlling pawns or center squares in enemies' positions, which is a positionally good concept, and is a very basic concept in the game of chess. All the way back to move 1, you want to control the central squares with e4 or d4. Generally, you can also play c4, but yeah. But anyways, as I was saying, look at the piece placement. Bishop e7 is literally doing nothing. It's literally just a pawn right now. It's pretty bad. It can't even move. Your dark squared bishop, however, is controlling a key square on d4. So if the opponent ever wants to play e5 and put their knight on e4, your knight and bishop are restricting that from happening, which is very good. So it's protecting the square here. Your bishop here is looking at the king. It has very open lines here. It can kind of just do anything it wants at this point. It's not really restricted by anything, and it's just doing a lot. And your rooks are going to both be on open files, or at least one is. The C file is fully open, and the D file is semi-open. But your rook is doing a lot more than either of these rooks, which are doing absolutely nothing. And pawn structure, it's not really something to talk about here, but yeah, no doubled pawns. Your pawns are controlling the center. Black's pawn structure is very solid, so again, not really much to talk about in terms of pawn structure. Of course, it's a bit complex, but you're solid here. so is black. And finally, king safety. Whose king is safer? I would argue that white is slightly safer since your pieces are more active, and also black's pieces are more passive, and being passive is not very massive. So black is never really going to attack your king, and you can set up very easy attacking chances on the king side, even though it may not appear like it right now, but it's very easy to come up with an attack in the Smith Morra Gambit. Yeah, king safety, I'm going to show one more example, and I think I'm actually going to go to the black side again, and we're going to go to a perk defense, which I used to play in my early days. I don't really recommend it anymore. Yeah, this is a perk defense, and essentially it's going to go like this. Main line is kind of like a King's Indian, and you play knight f6 and a bishop g7, very King's Indian style pawn structure. You may notice, but bishop c4 is a nice aggressive way to play for white, and you castle, and let's say castles. Now, main idea in these kinds of structures is you want to play f5, you want to play maybe knight d7 or knight c6, you want to play e5. So I'm just going to go through maybe a very quick example here. Let's say white pushes, or no, actually I don't want that to happen. Let's say white does nothing here, and they play rook here. So you don't really want to take, because then you're opening up the rook. So you don't want that to happen. So let's say they develop their bishop. So, oh, I have to play a move first. Let's play knight to h5. This is a very typical idea. Just ignore any blunders for now. We're just going through the main ideas. Bishop to d3. Maybe you want to trade off the bishop over here. But the main idea you want to go for is f5 here. But you cannot do that because the pawn is pinned. So a very common idea that you'll see from grandmasters is when kings are exposed along this diagonal, usually with their f pawn, usually you'll see something like king h8, and you're like, why the heck are you doing that? That move seems absolutely useless. Why are you moving your king? It's already castled. It's safe. Well, it's even safer on h8. It has more or less avenues of attack on the square. You notice on the G file, it has 3 files of attack that can really affect it, but on the H file, it can only be really attacked on 2 files, and the bishop is kind of restricting this diagonal. So it's definitely much safer on H8, and also it breaks the pin on the F7 pawn. So I don't know, let's make a move here for white, and now you can break with F5, play very King's Indian style. Obviously don't play this line, this exact line, because I made blunders, of course. I just wanted to show main ideas, but that's the reason why you see king h8. Yeah, the king is safer on h8 and h1, breaks pins, and yeah, it's just a generally good move if that diagonal is open, or you want to make your king safer for an obvious reason, or maybe not so obvious reason. Yeah, that does it for today's video. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. But yeah, don't forget to leave a comment down below, like and subscribe, and as always, I will see you in tomorrow's video.